Hi, welcome to the first episode here at BAM GPG. I am going to be your host, Ben.
I'm your co-host, Bryson.
And both of us are passionate fans of the NFL, more specifically the Green Bay
Green Bay
Packers.
Packers.
So, what we're hoping to do is host a podcast where we can take a deep dive into anything Packers, NFL news, some game analysis, and some of our fan experiences for attending some of the games. Really looking to bring together communities, celebrate our love for the team as well as the NFL. So let's go ahead and get this first episode kicked off here, Bryson. Wanted to kind of start with the Packers' most recent game here in Philadelphia, a game that we actually attended. Kind of one of those last minute decisions. We're located here in Iowa, so it's a little bit of a trip for us. Initially, we're going to fly out after Bryson's basketball game on a Saturday. Unfortunately, we did get our flight canceled about 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, so we ended up driving this 16 hours out to Philadelphia. So
that was a long drive.
Quite the gauntlet, absolutely. So just kind of wanted to touch on their fan base real quick. What was kind of your takeaway from your experience at Lincoln Financial Field, Bryson?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like half of the fans were just, "Pew, pew, pew, you suck." Half of the and then half of the fans were like actually, like they weren't actually like that. They were kind of nice. They were nicer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of my takeaway from it too. Is you had about 50% of the fans that were welcoming, friendly to us as Packer fans. They're visiting, but the other 50% were certainly as described. Certainly received that brotherly love from the fans there in Philadelphia. So it was interesting. A couple quick takeaways from the game. I felt like our defense was playing winning football.
Our offense it was a little bit shaky.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of goes back to the last several weeks of the season with our offense. We were kind of midway through the season. Seemed like we were finding our footing a little bit. Jordan Love, it appeared to be getting in some sort of rhythm. Yeah, it was really an up and down season for him this year. With the injuries early on, with his knee, and then with his groin after coming back from that. So just never really felt like he got it quite together. But that really surfaced during that last few weeks of the season, really. But kudos to the defense, especially with the injuries we kind of battled through this year. Really missing Jair Alexander out there. So Keyshawn Nixon, really saw him step up, play well. Valentine really kind of solidified that cornerback 2 spot, and linebackers, can't say enough good things about them this year. Defensive line's probably something that
we need a little help.
Yeah, absolutely, something we take a look at this off season. Outside of Rashawn Gary and Wyatt, I really didn't feel great about everyone else. Kenny Clark was solid. Lucas Van Ness really didn't take that step forward in year 2 like we were hoping for. So, maybe he works hard this off season. We see him here in year 3, and hopefully he can take that step forward in year 3.
Yeah. I'm thinking we trade him.
Van Ness?
Yeah.
You ready to give up on Van Ness already?
Yeah. I feel like he should have made a little progress by now, at least.
Yeah. A little disappointing season. Both of us are from Iowa, so we can kind of partial to Van Ness here as former Hawkeye. He's relatively raw on the field, though. Even when he was at Iowa, he was kind of a rotational guy. He was never playing, the majority of the snaps are out on the field. So his playing experience is still pretty raw, and maybe that's kind of what's holding him back here in year 2, and maybe we'll see a little bit more out of year 3. Where I would like to see Van Ness improve specifically is on the pass rush, right? So I felt like on running downs, he seemed to have a good sense for the ball, but his pass rush just really lacked. So that's kind of where, personally, where I'd like to see him step up if we do continue on with him into year 3 here. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
and then just wanted to touch base on the offense again here too. So, looking at the offense, our wide receivers really kind of up and down all year with, do we have a number one? Who's going to be the number one?
I think if T Higgins goes into free agency, I think we take him
Yeah.
as our true number one, or Devontae.
Yeah, either one of them would be a great veteran. Well, I guess T. Higgins wouldn't necessarily be a veteran presence, but he'd be that number one that we're looking for. Absolutely. As long as, I'm all on board with it. And the only hesitations I would see Gutekunst having with something like that is draft capital. Green Bay typically doesn't give up a lot of draft capital for trades and players of that nature, especially with the draft being in Green Bay this year. They're probably not going to give up any of the high round picks for him, right? So
yeah.
But T. Higgins certainly be welcome. Adams, very familiar with Devontae. Spent majority of his early career here in Green Bay, so he'd certainly be a welcomed addition back if that were to happen. So just kind of wanted to run through our receivers here real quick, Bryce. And so Jaden Reed was actually our leading receiver on the year. He finished the season with 857 receiving yards. I feel like the majority of that was probably towards the first half of the season. He kind of disappeared on us there in the second half.
Yeah.
The first half of the season he was rolling. It kind of felt like he solidified that wide receiver 1 role, and he just kind of dropped off after that.
Yeah.
Tucker Kraft, second in the team in receiving yards at 707, which is pretty solid for a tight end, year 2.
Yeah.
I felt like he really took some huge strides this year. He took some huge strides towards the end of his first year, certainly in his second year. So look for him to build and grow off of that here this coming year. Christian Watson actually finished 3rd in receiving yards this year.
Not what I expected. I expected him to be 1st this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's the type of receiver with his body size and speed. He can really kind of take the top off the defense when you need him to. So his presence was certainly missed, in the game against Philadelphia. He certainly could have used him out there, and it doesn't look like we're going to see him back till, at the earliest of week 12 of next year. He's going to be out with that ACL injury. So we'll be looking forward to him coming back and seeing what he can do on the field with us here as we make a playoff run, hopefully towards the end of this next year here. And then kind of going down the list here, Romeo Doubs would have been following Christian Watson, finished the season with 601 yards.
Yeah.
Again, for his standards, for what I felt his standards are, it's probably a little bit underperforming.
Yeah.
Right? So that's another guy that certainly like to see step up here in this coming year, and hopefully it's 2 head injuries late in the season, so that's always worrisome for him. So hopefully we can get him back early in the year, early next year, and healthy and ready to go. So
I want to talk about Malik Heath here. I feel like they should start him at 3rd or 4th. Because I feel like they just didn't start him enough this season than they should have.
Yeah, absolutely. So Malik Heath, certainly somebody you look forward to stepping up. Didn't have a whole lot of targets this year with the Packers just because of the depth we've had at wide receiver. But certainly a guy that we could see step up here this next year. Another guy I kind of want to give kudos to. He had a rough start to the season. A lot of drop passes. This guy runs some clean routes. So Dontavian Wicks, he seemed to kind of shore up his issue with the drop passes here towards the end of the year, and he's really productive on the field down the stretch for us here. So hoping he can kind of build off of that and carry that into next year for us as well. So just last thing on the receiver, certainly something I think we need to address this offseason, whether it's just adding depth with veteran presence, and maybe somebody through the draft, but certainly I'd like to add to that, especially with Christian Watson being out here for at least the first 12 weeks of the year. to start the 2025 season. So enough on the receiving there. So wanted to give probably the biggest kudos in our offense this past year was Josh Jacobs, and I felt like he really balled during that playoff game too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like he was like the one good player on our offense for the Eagles game that game. I feel like he was the one good player.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he, as always, plays hard. He's a very patient runner, very patient, runs hard when he does hit the hole. So look forward to see what he can do with us here in year 2. And then kind of going into that running back room here, got a couple, Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks, got a real deep running back group there. And then one guy we didn't get to see much out of, and I've kind of looking forward to seeing him play next year is Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah, absolutely. So he was injured pretty much all year. Dealt with the hamstring, and then he had the appendicitis issue before another hamstring issue. So didn't get to see much of him this year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do and produce on the field for us here this coming year.
Now I want to go back up to rushing. I want to talk about Malik Willis here.
Yeah.
He's a good running quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Malik Willis was, in some parts really saved our season, right? I mean, things could have went downhill real quick after the Jordan Love injury, and Malik Willis
stepped up.
Been with the organization for what, 8, 9, 10 days before being thrown into the starting role. So he absolutely stepped up. He's the guy I'd like to see, at least back in that quarterback 2 spot to start next season, if that's possible. So certainly got some holes to fill on the offense this coming season. I would like to see a healthy Jordan Love take the field and maybe find that consistency and rhythm that it kind of seemed to lack this year. So certainly got some work to do this offseason. Again, if take anything away from Gutekunst's press conference there at the end of the season where, he's really emphasizing it's, maybe now's the time to start playing for championships. So what that means, maybe they're more aggressive in the draft this year or, aggressive in free agency again, like they were last year when they went out and got X-Men and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
So just kind of flip the page here from this season, kind of going ahead and taking a look at some of our opponents coming up for the 2025 season. Let's
start with the away.
Yeah, so we'll start with the away game, but really Green Bay's got a gauntlet next year. We, based off 2024 results, got a tough schedule going into next year, so we really need to shore up some pieces here. So the away schedule, of course, we got our 3 divisional games. We're looking at Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, and then we're heading to Dallas. Got the Giants, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Denver, and Arizona.
It's a pretty easy schedule for
fairly easy. I mean, you never know what you're going to get in Dallas, especially now that they have a head coaching change with Mike McCarthy out. So not quite sure what that's going to look like next year, but they could certainly, with a healthy Dak Prescott.
The Giants and Browns are going to be pretty easy.
Yeah, Giants and Browns I would expect too, but everyone else on the road should be a pretty tough game. So if the Cardinals can carry in to next season with what they were doing towards the end of the season, that's not necessarily a walk in the park either. So, Bryson, you want to go ahead and cover some of our home games that we're looking at for next year?
A home? Just a gauntlet. Absolute gauntlet. We have our divisional games. Already hard enough. And then you have the Eagles and Commanders. Both really hard teams to play against. And you have the Ravens, Bengals, and Panthers.
Yes.
The Ravens and Bengals, they're going to be so
Ravens
hard.
and Bengals are going to be tough.
And the Panthers, they're starting to play better.
Yeah, they were playing some pretty good ball towards the end of the year. And like you mentioned, Philadelphia and Washington, 2 teams in the NFC Championship game this week. So we'll be hosting them at home next year at Lambeau. Bryson and I hope to attend those games.
Yeah,
It should be a good time. Hopefully, we can come away with both of them with a win.
hopefully.
Yeah. So, just want to touch on the Bears here real quick. So they got their new hire yesterday.
Ben
Ben
Johnson.
Johnson. Yep. So. As we know, Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He really had that offense humming. He had one of the top offenses in the league with Detroit. So I guess I'm not excited to see what he can do with that Bears offense.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm excited to see the Lions play bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would expect the Lions offense kind of take a step back from where they were under Ben Johnson, but they still have a really talented roster. With Montgomery, Gibbs, Goff should be back, St. Brown. So they're pretty deep. Their offensive line's tough. So still going to have a pretty tough team next year. It's definitely not going to be a walk in the park, but it's definitely going to be a different look than what we've seen here last couple of years under Ben Johnson's offense. So Chicago, should see an improvement. If you ask a Bears fan, they're probably telling you that they're headed to the Super Bowl here this year. It's about that time of the year where all Bears fans come together and are convinced that they're the 2025 Super Bowl champions after this hire. So did catch a little bit of Ben Johnson's press conference here today, and kind of his introduction to the Bears team there, and he did make the comments that he was took pleasure, so to speak, out of beating Matt LaFleur twice this past year. So he kind of threw that out there. I kind of feel like that's typical of a Bears coach. Usually see a new hire, they come take a shot at Green Bay. It's kind of typical of the Bears. But yeah, we'll see what they do under Ben Johnson this year. I would certainly expect him to be improved. Kind of clean up some of the stuff. So that's certainly going to be a tough couple games, both at home and on the road against Chicago. So schedule next year, absolutely, it's going to be a gauntlet. So looking forward to the challenge, but also knowing that we're probably going to have to shore some things up this offseason, especially on defense. Chicago's offense should be better, so we're really going to have to solidify those cornerback roles. One of the big question marks heading into this offseason is Jair Alexander, right? So, sure, you're all aware, kind of towards the end of the season, something seemed to be amiss between the Packers and Alexander. We didn't see him on the field for, pretty much since the second snap of the game in Chicago there.
Yeah.
So, kind of reading between the lines, I know Gutekunst kind of said in his press conference that there wasn't a disconnect between him and the team, but I feel like there's more layers to that onion to peel back that haven't came out yet. So we'll stay tuned for that. But kind of, what are your thoughts on Jair Bryson? Do you see him back with the Packers in 2025 and beyond?
Probably not, because I think they're just moving on from him. I don't think Jair wants to play with the team anymore. I think they're just done with him. I don't think he wants to play anymore, and I don't think the Packers want him anymore. And yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's probably mutual agreement between him and the team that his time in Green Bay is probably over. So I look for him to move on this offseason. Probably going to be after I think the date's June 1st, where we would avoid taking that large cap hit with his contract. So probably not going to see any movement before the draft with Jair. But, I think it's certainly worth exploring trade options for him, because I do think there's some value out there for him, because when he is on the field, he's producing. He's one of the top corners in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, certainly explore the market, see what's out there for him, see what we can get in return. But it's certainly a cornerback's definitely going to be an area that we'll probably address in the draft. I don't know what's out there, and we'll dig into that here in coming episodes of what's out there for free agents.
Yeah.
Potential free agent targets that Green Bay could be looking at. And then, again, it's going to be a little bit different look next year. We'll have bring back most of our core pieces going into next season, but it will be a little bit different look. Offensive line, defensive line, definitely our secondary. I think we're pretty solidified at safeties with Bullard, Williams, X-Man, of course. So feel pretty strong at that. Tight end group, feel pretty strong with Tucker Kraft, and then Luke Musgrave. We'll get him back healthy to start next season. So excited to see what those two can do together. Running back room's another one that's pretty crowded. Yeah, it's pretty good. Absolutely, pretty good. Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson really stepped up. I know Chris Brooks, limited role time we did get to see him with the ball. He seemed to have some explosiveness to him, and I know LaFleur is a big fan of him, so I would expect to see more of Chris Brooks next year. And then Marshawn Lloyd's kind of that wild card, right? I think he averaged a little over 7 yards a carry with USC his last year there. So I'm excited to see what he can do in Green Bay coming into the year healthy, hopefully. So just want to touch on some of our upcoming free agents here.
If they do become free agents.
Yeah. So whether or not Green Bay decides to tender an offer out to any of these guys, but kind of the top of the list here, Eric Stokes, cornerback. I fully expect Green Bay to move on for him.
Yeah.
There were hopes at the start of the season that possibly he may be cornerback 2, opposite side of Alexander. He just never really seemed
Stepped up.
never really seemed to kind of solidify himself in the rotation there. He had a great rookie season with us, but after that injury, just never really seemed to be able to get back to where he was his rookie year. So he's a guy I would expect Green Bay to move on from this offseason.
Yeah. Then you got A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon.
They're moving on from him.
I agree. That's an interesting one. From a character standpoint, I don't know if there's a better guy out there than A.J. Dillon. He's certainly Mr. Green Bay, Mr. Door County. He's got our in-law family from the area, so he's certainly got ties to the Green Bay area. But the only way I see Green Bay bringing him back is maybe if they were to offer him a veteran minimum to come back for the year. But even with that, it's going to be tough for him to crack the lineup with the list of running backs that we do have. So that'll be an interesting one to look forward to. I would expect, Dillon's probably going to get consultation from his agent to start kind of looking elsewhere, see if he can't get a fresh start somewhere else. And then you want to touch on this one here. It's another interesting one. Josh Myers. Yeah, you want to touch on that one for us here, Bryson?
I think we let go of him. He had a really disappointing season.
Yeah, Myers.
I think we just let go of him.
He's another one that
we should be done with him.
I agree. You probably start to look moving on from Josh Myers, seeing if we can't solidify that center position. There will be some movement on the offensive line. Zach Tom, I think you kind of look at his production on the field this year, and it's pretty safe to say he's kind of solidified himself as one of the top tackles in the league here. So I feel like Zach Tom's solidified. Outside of Tom, really everyone's got the potential to play tackle, guard, possibly even move him over to center. So Jordan Morgan, first round pick this last season. Didn't get to see a lot of him on the field this year. Again, injury riddled this year with a lot of our rookies, but he'll be an interesting one to see what he can do on the field with us. I know he played a lot of tackle in college, but possibly looking at moving him over to guard this year.
Yeah.
So got a couple linebackers.
Wait, go up for a second.
Yeah.
Up again. I want to talk about Eric Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we re-signed him.
Yeah, Eric Wilson.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely one of those guys that stepped up when we needed him to this year, especially when you saw injuries to Walker and even Cooper for a certain amount of time. So Eric Wilson was certainly a great utility to have, kind of throw into the mix there. A little bit undersized linebacker, but, certainly plays a lot of heart. So I wouldn't mind, if Price is right, getting him back in there.
That's the only problem with him. He's a little short.
Yeah. a little bit of a smaller linebacker, but the other linebacker, let me take a look here. The other, McDuffie. So McDuffie will be a free agent coming up here too.
Yeah, I think we sign him.
You know, he's a tough one because he's got a lot of experience under the Jeff Halfley defense, right? Being out of, I believe he's from Boston College as well, where Halfley, we kind of poked him out of the head coaching role in Boston College. So he really seems to fit Halfley's defense. And there were times this year where, you know, I really felt like McDuffie was kind of solidifying himself into that rotation this year. So there's a couple games we attended at Lambeau Field, and it seemed like he has a good eye for the ball. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know one of your favorites here,
Bo Melton.
Bo Melton. So wide receiver, he's a guy that I would expect Green Bay tenders an offer to. He's one of those receivers that, you know, his speed can certainly beat you downfield, but
I wouldn't mind him at kick return.
Kick return. I think that would be, if you know, what Keyshawn's saying is true. He's not wanting to return kicks and really focus on being that cornerback. Well, he called CB1. I don't think he's probably going to be CB1, but wants to focus on that position. So Bo Melton, you know, if we're able to bring him back, absolutely, that'd be a great spot for him with his speed.
Yeah.
And hands. Yeah. So I could certainly see him there. That's a pretty good take there, Bryson.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Wilson, we talked a lot about him just a little bit ago.
Yeah.
You know, running back 2 for us right now. He's another guy I fully expect Green Bay to bring back into the building here.
Yeah, I think we sign him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of a kicker here. A spot we weren't really sure of towards the beginning of the year. We really struggled. Seemed to be a rotating door for us this year with kickers until we got Brandon McManus in there. So I know Gutekunst has really expressed his desire to bring McManus back into the building next year.
Yeah, I think we bring him back.
Statistically, you know, one of the top kickers in the league this past year. I think he maybe had 1 or 2 missed kicks all year. 2 missed kicks all year. So he's certainly a guy that, you know, Green Bay is excited about and would like to have back next year. So I would fully expect Green Bay to
Eagles
make
and
him an offer.
Lions game.
Those are the 2 kicks, Philadelphia and Detroit, that he missed this year.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we're playing both of them again this year.
We are. Yep, we're playing. Got Lions both at home and on the road, and then we got Philadelphia at home for this coming year. So it should be a fun, exciting, competitive season coming up here. So we'll kind of touch base, dive into some of the more of the free agents here in the coming episodes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and kind of take a look at the draft, seeing what's available, you know, potentially moving up. If the player's right, if the spot's right, seeing what we can do to move up. Again, as I mentioned, the draft is in Green Bay this year, so pretty exciting for the city.
It is in Green Bay.
It is in Green Bay. So look forward to coming on here again, and we'll cover some of the NFL championship games for both NFC and AFC this weekend. Should be some pretty exciting games. Maybe we'll reveal kind of who our picks are for this weekend here in the coming episode.
Yeah, and as always,
go Pack, go.